If you were to ask any knowledgeable gamer to give you a list of the top 5 most influential video games of all time, chances are Doom would be high up on that list, if not right at the top of it. Originally released in 1993 for MS-DOS by id Software, Doom, while certainly not the first game of its kind, undoubtedly popularised the FPS genre as we know it today, with its mix of fast-paced, hyper-violent, gory action. Doom also showed us how much fun multiplayer gaming could be, with its introduction of deathmatches, where you could connect a number of PCs together and engage in a last man standing fragfest battle to the death. Doom's popularity and success spawned a host of imitators after its release, so much so that FPS games in the 90s were often referred to as Doom clones, but I guess I'm just showing my age now. Some of these games were great, others not so much, and at the end of the day, Doom was always regarded as the benchmark. The first Doom game has been ported to no less than 25 platforms, 13 of which have been consoles, and this is how I first experienced Doom when I played it on my friend's 32X. Now, not the best introduction to Doom in hindsight I know, but I didn't know that at the time, and in those days, you had to take what you could get. No matter which version of Doom you played, the plot was always the same. You played as a space marine, aka Doom Guy, aka Doomslayer, who must fight against the hordes of hell across the moons of Mars and hell itself. After the Union Aerospace Corporation, or UAC, have managed to open up a portal which has let all kinds of demonic nasties through. One entry in the series that stood out for me over the others, apart from the SNES version, which, while technically impressive for the time, is a prime example of just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should, is Doom 64, the 1997 former N64 exclusive, which in 2020 was remastered by the always brilliant Night Dive Studios. This was to coincide with the release of Doom Eternal, and for the purposes of this video, this is the version of Doom 64 I'll be reviewing. On its initial release in 1997, I could never get my head around why I seemed to be the only one who picked up or even played Doom 64, as everyone else at the time was too busy playing another certain N64 exclusive FPS. So, welcome to Fistful of Gamepad, I'm Rick, and this is my review of Doom 64. Developed and released by Midway under the supervision of id Software in 1997, Doom 64 followed the trend of most of Nintendo's 5th generation console titles and added a 64 to the end of it. This was to distinguish it from other games in the series and to also establish its exclusivity to the Nintendo console. At the time, Doom 64 was the 6th mainline Doom game released. This is including titles like Ultimate Doom and the master levels of Doom 2. And Doom 64 was a direct sequel to Doom 2. Following your successful killing of the demons of hell in Doom 2, the research facility on Mars has been quarantined and abandoned. Years later, a weak signal from a satellite is received, reporting that a single surviving demon has been resurrecting the demons that you've killed. You, being the only surviving Marine from the previous war, are sent back to hunt down the demon-resurrecting Mother Demon and stop Hell's forces invading Earth. Again. The first thing you notice when you start playing Doom 64 are the visuals. The game looks vastly different to previous games, and you could be forgiven for thinking you're playing a mod. The more sci-fi focused setting of previous games has been replaced with a more gothic, horror-based setting. The enemies you were used to gunning down in previous games have all had a facelift and been redesigned for this new version. This is explained in the story because the Mother Demon has resurrected all the demons that you previously killed, so they look a bit different. Some enemies have been completely omitted from Doom 64, such as the chain gun wielding Commando, enemy resurrecting Archvile, rocket lobbing Revenant, and the Spider Demon. To balance out these absences, Doom 64 includes exclusive enemies, which include the Nightmare Imp, a semi-translucent, more powerful version of the normal Imp, and finally there's the Mother Demon, the 4-armed, floating, fireball-flinging final boss of the game, and the reason you're back killing all these demon nasties, as it has been her who has resurrected them. As well as the enemies and environments getting a redesign, so too have the weapons, with old favourites like the shotgun, super shotgun, BFG and Chainsaw all getting a fresh new look. There's even the inclusion of a new weapon in the form of the Unmaker, a powerful laser-firing weapon of demonic origin, which is made from the skin and bones of demons, complete with pentagram decal for that authentic occult look. Graphically, the new look of Doom 64 I felt was very much welcome, and a refreshing change to the Doom we were used to, which at the time was arguably growing a bit old. Enemies were larger and less pixelated compared to previous games, although some may argue this pixelation was replaced with the N64's distinctive blurry when close-up visual style. Doom 64 also includes an opening title sequence, something not seen in previous Doom games, in which we see a huge battle taking place between Marines and demons. As the camera sweeps round the action, we can see Hell Knights, Arachnotrons, Mancubuses and a Cyber Demon, all very much laying waste to a load of Space Marines. Gameplay wise, things are the same. You blast your way through 32 main levels, 4 of these are secret, and when you complete the main game, this unlocks the Lost Levels. These Lost Levels are an exclusive addition to the 2020 remaster and meant to act as a link between Doom 64 and the events of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. There's also an additional level which is often referred to as the fun level. As you make your way through each of the levels, you collect keycards, press switches, ride elevators and blast demons, using the tried and tested arsenal of both classic and futuristic weapons. The levels, while very labyrinthine, are relatively easy to navigate, and you can switch to the map at any point to see where you've been and where you need to go. Different to previous versions, Doom 64 includes traps such as tripwires, which result in either huge metal darts or even more huge fireballs being fired your way. There are also what I call trigger events, where something you do within the level will trigger the sudden spawning of a load of enemies. These triggers can range from pressing a switch to simply killing an enemy. Another addition to Doom 64 is the ability to upgrade your weapon. Now, this only applies to the Unmaker, but you can collect 3 demon keys to increase the rate of fire and the number of shots you can fire, resulting in up to 3 shots at once. Your perspective is still limited to a fixed one, so there's no looking up and down, although enemies on higher and lower grounds are taken care of by the game's auto-aim, which is very intuitive and works as and when it has to. There's no jumping or crouching, but you can still sidestep, and unlike in the SNES version of Doom, you can circle strafe. Your interface has all the basic information you need, such as ammo, health and armour, but things like what weapons you have in your arsenal are left up to you to remember. One noticeable absence is Doomguy's face. This watchful-eyed, floating head that got more bloody the more damage you took, reacted to you firing your weapon and picking up items, and in the case of the 3DO version of Doom, exploded when you died, is unfortunately nowhere to be found in Doom 64. There are 4 difficulty settings to choose from, ranging from the easiest, called Be Gentle, to the toughest, Watch Me Die, and you can save the game at any point via the options menu. Just remember to save regularly, because if you die, your 2 choices of restarting are either at the start of the level with just your pistol, or from your last save point, which, if that last save point was 45 minutes and 3 levels ago, could end up being very annoying. You can also input passwords to access each level, or to access cheats. Controls are tight, sharp and responsive, allowing you to easily switch between weapons on the fly, while circle strafing to avoid attacks and dodge incoming projectiles. This is made a lot easier on modern control pads, allowing you to circle strafe out the firing line of a Hell Knight, even in the most cramped of spaces. There are also platforming elements, which involve you having to run from one platform to another, usually suspended over a large vat of lava, although your locked viewpoint can make certain platforming sections rather challenging and frustrating, as not being able to look up and down to see where you are can often result in you falling to your death. Doom 64 also uses more coloured lighting, similar to that used in the PS1 version. This adds to the atmosphere and is a nice contrast to the stark lighting used in previous games. The scrolling sky that seems to roll over you, or the lighting effects in the Dark Citadel level, all help to create a sense of scale. The satanic imagery that adorns the walls also adds to the creepy and unsettling atmosphere. Overall, the game is visually more dark, atmospheric and gothic compared to previous entries in the series. This is all complemented by the frankly fantastic ambient soundtrack by composer Aubrey Hodges. Hodges' score creates a real unsettling sense of tension and foreboding and adds to the already uneasy feeling of the game. This is in stark contrast to the rock and metal inspired music of previous games. The game runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second at 4K on PC, PS5, PS4 Pro, Xbox Series X and Xbox One X, and at 1080p 60fps on base PS4, Xbox One and docked Nintendo Switch. All these are an upgrade over the original 30 frames a second on the original N64 version. One noticeable absence though graphically is that of the reload animation of the shotgun and super shotgun. These brief animations of only a few frames in previous games made you feel frankly like a real badass, as well as them being very cool graphical touches. They also created a delay in firing, which added to the tension as you're trying to fend off a horde of demons while shoving 2 shotgun shells into your super shotgun before unloading both barrels into a demon's face. In Doom 64 though, all you get is the recoil from the shotgun and then the sound of it being reloaded. No badass animation or anything, just a bit of recoil. This would have been a nice addition to have in the remastered version and is a bit of a missed opportunity. Each enemy has their own gory death animation, which is usually along the lines of them collapsing into a bloody pile of their own viscera and entrails, or simply being blown into a gooey mess. The sound design in Doom 64 is excellent in creating a really tense, unsettling and foreboding atmosphere. There always seems to be a constant wail, whine or rumble in the air, like you can hear the moans of a million tortured souls wherever you go, which never lets up. The sound of the enemies has been updated, with cries from the soldiers now sounding more like grumbles, and grumbles from the demons, formerly known as Pinky Demons, now sounding more guttural and snarly when you kill them. Although, I don't think the roars from the Hell Knights and the Barons of Hell sound as ferocious as they do in the previous games. As you make your way through the labyrinthine levels, you can also hear the disembodied moans, grunts and groans of the numerous hellspawn echoing down the vast corridors. When you face off against the cyber demon, you can hear its pounding thunderous footsteps before you encounter it. All this adds to creating atmosphere and tension in the game. The weapons have also had a sound redesign and still sound powerful as you hear their sounds echoing across the vast stone walls and expansive corridors. The chain gun I thought sounded particularly powerful as its thunderous fire is complemented by hot blue flames at the end of the barrel when fired, which I thought was a nice touch. Although I do prefer the original sound of the plasma rifle, and the absence of the previously mentioned reload animation is very much missed. The only other weapon based sound issue I have is with the Unmaker, as I've never liked the sound of it when fired, as I think rather than it sounding like a weapon of immense and unfathomable demonic power, sounds more like one of those cheap crap toy laser guns that your nan would buy you off the market back in the day, that wouldn't even survive the bus ride home before it broke. One gameplay aspect of Doom 64 I did find frustrating and repetitive was the pressing of a switch that would open a door somewhere in the level. You would have no indication of where this was, so you were left with no choice but to backtrack, retrace your steps and try and remember every locked door that you passed to see if it was that one that had been opened. If the switch was on a timer, then it was doubly frustrating. How you acquire the weapons was another gameplay aspect I had an issue with, as, for example, playing the game on Bring It On setting, you find the super shotgun at the start of level 3, and then end up getting all the weapons, including the Unmaker, although not upgraded, by level 12, leaving you the remaining 16 levels of the base game with no new weapons to discover. Another small quibble I have is, even though you're pitted against waves of screen-filling, relentlessly vicious demons who are hell-bent, no pun intended, on tearing you in two, you're never really underpowered at any point. Ammo for all weapons is always in abundance, even on the tougher settings, so you're never really having to worry about running out. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, as I love running headlong into a horde of demon hellspawn, all guns blazing and chainsaw revving. It just feels a bit easy. But maybe I'm looking at this with my survival horror pants on, rather than my frantic run and gun ones. And I must say, it is a nice change to always have plenty of ammo to hand. One of the main issues I have with Doom 64 though, is its lack of any kind of multiplayer. Even more so with this remaster. Now, back in the 90s, the N64 was known for its multiplayer capabilities. Hell, it even advocated it with 4 controller ports on the front of the console. The N64 had a laundry list of great multiplayer games and proved it was more than capable of handling 4-player split-screen gaming, including deathmatches. So, to have such a key feature of both the N64 and Doom in general absent was a real disappointment. Even Doom on the SNES had a multiplayer deathmatch feature via the X-Band network, although this never made it to the UK. The lack of multiplayer, according to a Midway representative, was due to Nintendo's failing to provide the developers with the necessary equipment to allow them to implement and program the multiplayer aspect in. However, it was also speculated that Midway had concerns over slowdown, which is something you don't want in any multiplayer game, and especially a Doom game. A spokesperson for Midway also commented,
"Everyone knows that the best part of playing multiplayer is not knowing where your opponent is. And with 4 players split screen, everyone can easily see where their opponents are."
And I guess this is a fair comment about the split screen spying, as anyone who's played split screen multiplayer back in the day is guilty of taking a sly glance at their opponent's screen, and anyone who says they haven't,
bullshit.
Regarding the slowdown concerns, I'd say that the likes of GoldenEye, Turok 2, 3, Rage Wars, Quake 2, Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing all had multiplayer that ran at variable and even sometimes questionable frame rates. But at the time, it didn't necessarily impact on the fun factor of being with your mates, crowded round a small CRT TV, playing video games together.
Which was the style at the time.
Also, Doom 64 utilised 2D sprites of 3D models, which, and I'm no programmer so I'm surmising and maybe wrong, would surely not be as demanding on the N64 as say GoldenEye or even Perfect Dark, which use 3D polygons to render characters. Outside of the main campaign, lost levels and different difficulty settings, some may say there isn't much on offer with Doom 64 to keep newer players coming back. There's no multiplayer, no map editor, just a single player campaign. For me though, it's the old nostalgia that keeps me coming back, and I'll regularly replay Doom 64, jumping back into its hellish world of fast-paced, run and gun, gory, atmospheric action. Overall, Doom 64 is by no means a bad game, or even one of the weaker entries in the franchise, far from it. It's a Doom game that for whatever reason, be it development time, money, or access to resources, didn't capitalise on the main advantages the N64 had. For me personally, it certainly didn't stop me enjoying the game any less today or back in 1997 when I first picked it up. It's still a fast-paced, frantic, frenzied FPS of a game, and I'd still recommend it to anyone, be they a Doom fan or otherwise. At the time of its release, it just wasn't able to compete with the likes of other games that were able to offer more in terms of longevity and replayability. And that brings us to the end of my review of Doom 64. Please comment below your favourite Doom games or Doom memories from back in the day, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again.